The content of this podcast has not been evaluated by Health Canada or the FDA. It is educational in nature and should not be taken as medical advice. Always consult a qualified medical professional to see if a diet, lifestyle change, or supplement is right for you. Any supplements mentioned are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Please note that the opinions of the guests or hosts are their own and may not reflect those of Advanced Orthomolecular Research Incorporated. Welcome to Supplementing Health, a podcast presented by Advanced Orthomolecular Research. We are all about applying evidence-based and effective dietary, lifestyle, and natural health product strategies for your optimal health. In each episode, we will feature very engaging clinicians and experts from the world of functional and naturopathic medicine to help achieve our mission to empower people to live their best lives naturally. This week's episode of Supplementing Health is brought to you by AOR's Gynema 75, a hypoglycemic Ayurvedic herb that helps to suppress sugar cravings naturally while supporting healthy glucose metabolism. Those looking for a natural support for blood sugar management and candida control will benefit from supplementing with this evidence-based high-dose extract. Purchase yours today at a local retailer or at aor.ca or aor.us. Hi there, and welcome back to Supplementing Health. I'm your host, Cassie Price. This week, I'm joined by Dr. Aaron Zadek. He is a naturopathic doctor and certified sports nutritionist through the International Society of Sports Nutrition. We will be discussing sports medicine, body composition, and weight loss. Welcome, Aaron, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Why don't we get started by talking a little bit about how you got into the world of sports and your unique take on body composition?
All right, so I started working in sport doing sideline emergency management. So running on the field anytime someone got hurt and then helping them with the rehabilitation. We saw a consistent trend where athletes were getting injured a lot and we were doing a really good job patching them up enough to get back to play. But it was something that we would constantly see the same injury poke its head up possibly several times in a season or even throughout that athlete's career. So I started to get into more of the preventative side where we were looking at how we can use nutrition in particular to help with some of the prevention and improve recovery from injuries. So that's where I kind of took my sports medicine direction. And now I work with elite athletes on the professional level, all the way down to recreational athletes and weekend warriors, helping them meet their health goals, both in weight management as well as hitting their fitness peaks in their own different sports and what they're looking to do.
So you have a special focus in mixed martial arts or MMA fighters. I know you work one-on-one with a lot of them, and part of their career is to fit into a certain weight class as it is a weight class sport. So that will contain a certain degree of rapid weight loss. Can you talk about some of the things that you do specifically for weight loss and body composition with these MMA fighters?
So in mixed martial arts, boxing, kickboxing, each athlete has a contract weight where they have to weigh in, and if they're even 0.1 of a pound over that contract weight, they could lose the fight, they could lose a significant portion of their wage. So it's really important that they're diligent and on target throughout their camp and then on the scale before the competition. My experience with that sport, especially given, as you said, the extreme cutting that you might see, is helping them take an evidence-based approach, making sure that they're not dehydrating down or limiting the dehydration as much as possible, and focused on maintaining their weight within their performance threshold. So maintaining the ideal weight for each athlete based off of their style, based off of their output, and how they can easily safely touch down on their target weight and be ready to go the next day.
From what I've learned, some of the things these fighters do to reach their fighting weight is actually pretty extreme. What are some of the things that you've seen there?
So, I mean, a lot of people go into it just thinking that you can tough through it, that you can, stay in a sauna for hours and just, sweat it all away, step on the scale, and then just drink enough water that the next day you're back on track. And it doesn't really work that way. And what we do know from the research is there's severe detriment to performance. Hydration is so critical to performance, that when we see hydration drop even a little bit, the detriment to performance, especially in combat sports, where your margin of error is very small, can be quite extreme. So, I mean, from weight cutting, you tend to see it all. You see guys who try to do a lot of baths with Epsom salts to pull the water out, sauna. But this is just moving around water. This isn't true weight drop, and it's certainly not going to be long-lasting in any capacity for body composition. So for athletes that are getting into combat sports, it's really important that you limit the cuts. It's not a good thing for you. At the amateur level, you should not be cutting any weight. Mm-hmm. You should be stepping on the scale at your weight and competing there, because it gives you a chance to hone your craft and focus on the performance side, which at the amateur level, gaining that experience and being able to execute your game plan is critical to seeing you perform the way you've imagined.
Now, that type of weight loss, or rather water loss, is pretty extreme and would not really be applicable to most people. So can you outline what your approach would be for the average client that comes to you looking to improve their body composition?
So if we're looking to lose weight, we always want to make sure that we're communicating clearly. Are we looking to lose fat? Are we looking to reduce our body composition? Because unfortunately, the number on the scale tells us a little bit too much, right? The number on the scale is that combination of, organ weight, bone mass, muscle mass, as well as body fat. And when we get obsessed with that number, we're not really qualifying how well our workouts have been going. Right? We can have a great stretch of workouts and we can see our weight plateau, right? We're not losing weight and we're like, but I'm working out so much. Well, maybe we're gaining a little bit of muscle mass while we're losing fat mass, still a net positive. But if they're looking to see that number come down, well, we have to look at what's behind that. So one of the approaches we take is we do an in-visit body composition. Absolutely important. This way we know not only where their numbers are at as far as fat mass, but also where they're storing their fat. Right? We'll also take a look at the timeline they're looking to get there. That'll give us an idea of how we need to cut calories, as well as how we need to look at workouts. Everyone's a little different, and it's a lot easier when you have a professional athlete across from you who's doing 2 to 3 workouts a day, and managing around that, because the output is so much more. But if we're recreational, maybe we've got kids at home, and we're trying to squeeze in our extra workouts around our lifestyle, then we have to be really, really smart about our calories in. And that's critical. Recognizing where we're blowing our targets. Recognizing how we can use really healthy foods that make us feel full very quickly. Using our fiber, using our protein is critical to that. And really doing away with the myth that a calorie of fat is the same as a calorie of protein, is the same as a calorie of carb, which is probably one of the biggest weight-specific myths that we see out there.
That's a great point. I think there is a greater awareness now that not all calories are equal, but can you break that down a little bit further for us?
Yeah, and it seems like this information changes in the news almost daily, which makes it very difficult as a consumer to interpret. I think my favorite group of studies is really looking at some of the overfeeding studies for protein, and some of the studies that look at, if we reach our caloric targets, let's say we're looking to lose a pound a week, that's net 500 calories a day that you got to bring down to lose that. If we meet that target and then eat a little bit more protein, well, we'd expect to gain weight, right? Because we're going past our target, and that just doesn't happen. Right? And what we realize is calorically, protein, there is a thermogenic effect of food. We do tend to invest a little bit more energy into burning protein and making it usable for our body. And this means it doesn't quite have the same caloric burden that we see from our fats and our carbohydrates. So that's really interesting. It gives us an idea of, well, if we're hungry and we need to snack on something, but we're already really tight against our calories for the day, well, maybe we should be opting for something that's lean and clean, that's more protein. Or we can look more towards fiber, right? And stuff that doesn't have a massive caloric burden to it. Whereas our fats and our carbs obviously can have a higher burden to it. And we all joke about how carbs and cravings. seem to go hand in hand.
Right. Okay, so it's not just about your overall macros. It's about the whole equation of calories in versus calories out, removing the empty calories or simple carbs, and then building your macro profile appropriately to incorporate higher protein and higher fiber. So aiming for a higher nutrient, lower calorie diet that keeps you feeling full. If this is the first step in your regime with athletes and patients you work with, what would be your second step?
Really making sure the nutrient timing is on point.
Okay.
I find that to be really important. And every athlete's a little different. We see some athletes, shifting more towards ketogenesis. That's been an interesting fad recently. But we do see with a lot of individuals who are trying to both, work out, maintain a busy work life, and trying to find that balance, that they might go through large stretches without eating. And they think this is a good thing because it's like, look, I consume no calories in this big stretch of time. But in fact, all we've done is built up this, little hormone cascade of, I'm hungry, I'm really hungry, feed me. And all of a sudden, maybe our next meal, we're starting to blow our targets. We're going a little too far, too fast. So I find more consistent meals through the day for a lot of people to just be a little bit better, especially around our exercise. Right? That window after performance, when we've been in the gym or we've been on the mats, we really want to make sure that we're fueling ourselves after, because this is the time where our muscles are looking to recover. They're looking for protein. They're looking for carbohydrate. And that's where when we give carb, we want to give back. We just burnt our energy stores in this fantastic workout. Let's give that back so we could do it again the next day. The other thing is there is that trend where we see a lot of people coming in right now who are trying to work out fasted. The idea that if I go in fasted, there's no circulating energy, therefore my workout only burns fat. And the reality is our body needs that energy for performance. And, some people find that this is very effective and good for them. But for those that have to do multiple workouts through the day or are looking for one high quality workout where they're looking to achieve maybe improved workout goals, maybe it's, max repetitions, maybe it's going up in weight, we've got to make sure we're fueling for this performance. We've got to see success in exercise. And most of the athletes I talk to that work out fasted, they feel sluggish.
So overall, you're not a fan of the morning fasted workout then?
No, I've never been a fan of a fasted workout. I think the risk for injury goes up too high. I think we make mistakes. And I think when it comes to concentration in sport, that mind-body connection, that's a huge asset for everybody.
What about somebody who is just looking to lose weight and get healthier, but isn't necessarily considering themselves to be an athlete?
We look at ways to structure nutrient timing, and I always say meal prep is your best friend. When you know you have food available, the food that you've prepared, that you've put intention to, that's going to help you stay on target, you're more likely to stick to the plan. It's like if you go to the grocery store hungry, right? You're more likely to buy something you shouldn't. You're more likely to overconsume.
Okay, so one of the things I have personally experienced and hear people talk about is they start working out, the clothes are starting to fit better, they're feeling pretty good about themselves, but the number on the scale just doesn't seem to budge. I assume that has to do with muscle gain in place of the fat loss. However, can you talk about what is actually happening here and how people get into that fat burning zone?
So there's a couple of things happening, and I think you've kind of hit it. They're in this position where they're turning fat over, right? They're mobilizing it for energy, and then they're starting to see muscle gains. We're starting to see growth and development, and that's where that sculpting comes from, right? You can't have one without the other unless you're really burning it to the ground, and then there's risks with that as well. But that's really a good thing. When you're seeing that things are fitting better, it'll come. So first message is be patient. Second is we might have to modify some of the workouts to hit your goals, right? If the goal is to bring your fat mass down and hold muscle mass and see a lower true weight, well, then we might have to change the cardio. We might want to keep you in more of a fat burning state where you're, low heart rate, that heart rate range of around 120, 130 beats a minute for longer duration. That's a nice, easy way to do it. We could also look at more higher intensity exercises that have big sprints and explosive nature that has us mobilizing these reserves very quickly. That won't work for everybody. that high octane explosiveness, but it will work for some. And I think the number one message for weight loss or any body composition, make sure you're doing what puts a smile on your face, right? Our bodies were made to explore motion. We should enjoy it. We should feel good. Our workout should rejuvenate us in a lot of ways. Yes, we'll feel tired, but we should feel a little bit of endorphin rush. We should feel good. We should feel stress relief. There's a lot of good things that come with it.
Cortisol and stress levels can really play a role in weight gain, right? So especially when it comes to that midsection. So how often do you look at hormones and stress levels with your athletes and patients? And what role does that play in helping them with their body composition?
Definitely plays a role, right? As you said, when cortisol's out of alignment and we see it spiking at the wrong times, we definitely see some changes to the way we store fat. That's such a big problem right now, especially in this 9-to-5 grind that we especially see a lot of people stuck in. So I think the big thing is structure. We have to organize, we have to plan, and if we have to intervene to bring cortisol down and to make sure it's spiking appropriately, then you intervene. And we always look at that. We want to make sure that we have an idea of where their hormones are, especially in our elite athletes, but it is something that's important. I think that for a lot of people, when it's weight management, it's always going to be multifactorial. If there's a history of hormones acting out, then yes, we absolutely have to address that. For some, it's just routine management. It's about finding that consistency and finding that drive, right? Not everyone can wake up at 4 a.m. and work out.
No, you absolutely have to enjoy it for it to be maintainable. I completely agree. There's such a large role for mindset in the success of somebody's composition goals or body composition goals, weight loss goals. There has been some research even that speaks to the role of limiting beliefs in limiting that weight loss or preventing people from reaching those goals. So another component to that mental game that you've touched on briefly, but I'd like to dive into a little deeper, are cravings. What are some of the tips and tricks, other than protein and fiber, which you previously mentioned, do you use to help your clients manage their blood sugar levels and reduce those cravings?
So one of my favorite techniques to help ensure that we're staying on point and listening to our body is actually using a smaller plate. So, everyone's been at home and they pull out that big dinner plate. And that's fine because you're going to load it up and then you're going to scarf it down because you're hungry, you've worked out. Or maybe you've got a family where if you don't get it on your plate, someone else is eating it. I don't know. But one of the things that we do a lot of is portion control. So we get them to use a smaller plate. Maybe like just one that's about 30% less. And we say, listen, you can refill it. That's fine. But you have to wait 5 minutes. You have to let those stretch receptors in your stomach kick in. And we say, listen, you can finish that plate, but you're going to wait 5 minutes. You can go back for another serving. But when you go back, you're going to pick a little bit more from the protein and the fibrous green side than the carbohydrate. You've had your portion of carbohydrate. And we'll see how that goes. And for a lot of people, that'll work. The other thing is make sure you're drinking fluids. Right? A lot of times when we're feeling that hunger, it's not always hunger. Sometimes it's hydration.
And that is between meals, right? I seem to recall in a previous discussion that drinking with meals can actually dilute your digestive juices, which could be counterproductive.
Absolutely. And we want to make sure that we're not just parched.
What about from a supplemental perspective? What are some of the things you have found to be effective in helping to reduce patients' cravings?
I think continually acknowledging why we're doing things. There is the mental side of things, right? And it depends what we're craving, right? If we're craving birthday cake, that might be an exercise in mental control, where we just have to remind ourselves, what do we want more? The birthday cake or achieving a physical weight, achieving this goal, hitting the scale properly. What is our goal? And in other cases, it's our body's still hungry. What are we looking for here and why? And then we have to look through the day and say, well, what choices did we make? Did we stick to the plan? And where are we at? And sometimes, in the extreme side, so, for a professional fighter who's got to make his target weight and it's got to come down, you gotta just put your chin down and barrel through it. Right. That is very realistically the case for our professionals who, they're working 3 times a day. They can't burn anymore. There's nothing left to burn there. and their calories have to be at a certain point or they're not going to be in that healthy performance range. But for them, we look to keep them in that performance range from camp to camp. But for recreation, and I really like chromium for that. I love that mushrooms are really high source, or moderately high. I don't know if it's the highest one out there, but I know that they have a decent amount. We like that. Someone was telling me the other day that Gymnema does some really neat stuff with regards to sugar cravings. Other ones that I'll use in particular, mostly just, getting that fiber in, right? I would rather see an athlete pick good fiber choices and maybe an extra, quarter of a lean chicken breast than, go and just ravage on a bag of chips. Again, your calorie value to the protein, it's not as much. There's density to the food. We're going to feel more full. But additionally, I just really like the idea that we're giving back foundational amino acids. They're going to help us recover and structurally rebuild damaged tissue from our workouts. So I do tend to keep it to functional foods. We got to make sure our cofactors are present. We got to make sure our B vitamins are set. A lot of times when we're craving our carbs, this is our predominant source for our B vitamins, our base cofactors for every energy.
Absolutely, and magnesium as well, right? So throughout our conversation, you mentioned that protein doesn't have the same effects as carbs. Does that mean that you most often go for a low carb approach with your customers?
Not always, as long as it's not no carb. Again, those that want to exercise ketogenic, we can work with you. We can make it work. But for those that go absolutely no carb, that is tough. It's so hard, both on your mental focus, but also that drain. It takes a while to get into that. But lower carb, especially if you're looking to drop pounds.
Okay, so no refined carbs then. So that includes things like sugar, pops, treats, etc. And just by cutting those, you could be cutting calories by up to 30% in some cases, right?
Well, and it's really important because our body wasn't designed to process liquid carbohydrates, right? There was no place from, humans 15,000 years ago wandering around where they would find, the great wild Coca-Cola or the orange juice. This didn't really exist. Our body recognized we were full based off of stretch receptors in the stomach, right? And leptin hormone loop saying, hey, we've had enough. But when we're constantly drinking a lot of our calories, be it through pop, be it through, adding sugar to our juices, our body doesn't get the same, hey, did you just consume, 400 calories? That just happened. There's no signal.
Well, this has been very enlightening conversation. Thank you so much, Dr. Zadek, for joining me today. We will definitely need to have you back to talk more about your area of expertise in sports medicine and some of the other ways that people can improve their training regimes. As well, thank you to all the listeners who tuned in this week to Supplementing Health. We'd love to see you join us again next week to learn about burnout and how you can prevent it with Jordan Bruce. Thank you for listening to Supplementing Health. For more information about our guests, past shows, and future topics, please visit aor.ca/podcast or aor.us/podcast. Do you have a topic you want us to cover? We invite you to engage with us on social media to request a future topic or email us at marketing@aor.ca. We hope you tune in again next week to learn more about supplementing your health.